For coming out to our ACA 115 professional development session. This is our second session this semester for the ACA 115 instructors. And this particular session deals with your pedagogy. So it's more from a pedagogical perspective, giving you tools, resources, knowledge, ideas, anything that we can think of to again help you implement the QEP within your classroom and within your course content. I'm actually going to be facilitating the written component for our training today, and Professor Barbara Pan from Wingate University, she's a communication studies professor there, and our own Professor Michael Fairley are going to facilitate the oral communication component of our training for today. So we're going to split it up in a couple of different segments. And in your packet that I gave you, it's already divided for you. So you can see the first part, we're going to tackle our written communication component first. And then, again, second half, you'll see the handouts for the oral communication or the speech element following. So again, the purpose of our training today deals with pedagogy. So we want to give you the tools, the resources, the knowledge, ideas that you need to teach and assess communication skills within your classroom. And I think it's important to begin, again, reviewing our QEP goal and looking at our SLOs so we keep those at the forefront of what we're trying to do with our quality enhancement plan, speaking to convey, writing to display. The goal of RCC's QEP is to enhance our graduates' ability to communicate effectively for their chosen career and educational paths. And our goal is actually going to be fulfilled and achieved through 3 SLOs, through 3 student learning outcomes. So given a professional or academic context appropriate to the student's chosen career or educational path, first, the student will express thoughts and ideas in writing using standard English and appropriate vocabulary. Second, the student will express thoughts and ideas orally using standard English and appropriate vocabulary. And third, the student will select and use appropriate means and methods to communicate these thoughts and ideas. So in essence, we want our QEP to help improve student learning in a way that helps our students speak and articulate themselves, speak and write clearly, so that, again, it marks them as educated. It helps them excel professionally, and it ultimately improves their quality of life. We know that better communicators ultimately get better jobs. They are the ones who excel on the job place. They are the ones who become leaders, again, within their work environment, within their community environment. And so effective communication skills are essential. I think we're all in agreement with why we're doing the QEP, but I just wanted to keep those SLOs in front of us so that we know what it is we're trying to achieve, what we're going to be measuring. So again, we're looking at the component of the written component, the oral component, looking at using appropriate means and methods to communicate the thoughts and ideas within that discipline. And then we're also holding students to a higher level of language usage. So we're, again, holding them to the expectation of using standard English and appropriate vocabulary within the situation that they're in. Our professional development outcomes, I wanted to take a minute and review these as well because, again, this is a part of our QEP, professional development, because, again, we're giving faculty the tools, the ideas, the resources, and the knowledge necessary to help teach and assess communication skills. But these also, again, help support, again, the overall goal of the QEP and mirror our student learning outcomes. So first, instructors will acquire skills and knowledge to teach and assess writing using standard English and appropriate vocabulary. Second, instructors will acquire skills and knowledge needed to teach and assess orally using standard English and appropriate vocabulary. And third, instructors will select and use appropriate instructional means and methods to teach and assess communication of thoughts and ideas. So you can see the parallels between the student learning outcomes and the professional development outcomes. So again, I want you to be aware that yes, you are going to have to teach some element of communication skill within your discipline. However, as we talked about at previous training, you're going to use the activities that are within your discipline to incorporate these elements so that you can take, maybe 5 minutes with an activity and give just a little mini lesson about a communication element that would help students or benefit students. Again, we're giving them some instruction, then we're going to give them an opportunity to practice what we're asking them to do. So again, if we're asking them to write a summary, we might give them an instruction about what goes into an effective summary, a fully developed summary. And then we, again, give them that opportunity to practice. We would perhaps grade that assignment, and then we would give them some feedback on how well they did. We would help to show their strengths, to show their weaknesses within their writing skill level. Okay, so we're going to give you some ideas to, again, help you teach and assess with this particular training. So I thought it would be fun, first of all, to take a grammar test. How fun is that, right? All right, well, it's not hard. It's just a quick little test, and it's the first thing that you have in your writing, in your packet for your writing part. Okay, so take just a couple of minutes. It should honestly take you, don't spend a lot of time with it. It should take you probably 2 or 3 minutes to fill this out. So the first one, again, fill in the blank. We'll do the first one together. What is a person, place, or thing? A noun. See, how hard is that? All right. So just take a minute, and then you can answer. The first part is grammar. The second part is, again, identifying clear writing. And if you have questions, please let me know. All right, let's go ahead and go over our answers to our short, fun grammar quiz and see what we find. All right, we said the first one, a noun is a person, place, or thing. Number 2, a blank is an incomplete thought and cannot stand alone. Yes, that's a fragment. And you didn't even have a word bank to choose from, right? And you knew that. So that's great. Give yourself a hand. All right, let's look at the second section. So you're looking at if the statement is correct, tell that it's correct. If it's incorrect, determine that. My cat tiger be the toughest animal I know. Yes, we have a verb issue. What should it be? My cat tiger is. Yes. Okay, good. All right. She have given it her best shot. Yes, we have another verb issue. It should be has. Okay. We was surprised that he lived through the accident. Another subject verb agreement. We were surprised. See, you guys thought this was going to be hard, didn't you? I does not believe that she told me the truth. Okay. Now, how many of you have seen students write like this? Yes. Okay. So we recognize there's an issue. So again, part of it is just recognition of these issues, and again, giving some solutions for it. Last Easter, Debbie hid an egg in the exhaust pipe of Grandpa's old Ford. Yes, hid. We have a verb tense. We need to be in the past tense. Okay, so good. All right, the next section, we're looking at whether it's a fragment or if it's complete. Because the business had just closed, it's a fragment, right? You have a dependent clause, but there's nothing to hook it to, so it's an incomplete sentence. Although I, like most of my colleagues, it's also a fragment. Again, you have a dependent clause, so you're beginning with that. You got to hook it you have to hook it to an independent clause, right? And then, especially that pay raise, still a fragment, right? You've got again, a phrase or a clause that you could add on for descriptive purposes. Good job. All right, now we're looking at sample writings, and I gave you there were 5 sample paragraphs here. And we sort of move, I think, in sequence, but what did you think of the first one? Some of you may have seen this example before. I was in the kitchen bright early to make some breakfast for my family. I had slip and fall on some just and bust my tail. Lucky though no one had saw me, but my puppy Buddy did. He had licked up the juice and grown at me because he thought I was trying to drink it. Are there issues? Yeah, so that's probably not a great example of clear, coherent writing. Which one did you think was the best? Why?
It was well thought out, it was well organized.
Yes, you're right. All of you are right. Do what?
They explain.
Yes, it begins with a lead-in. There's an attention getter, right, to draw a reader into this piece of writing. There is a little bit of background information, some explanation about what's going on with this main topic, and then that logically and smoothly transitions into a well thought out thesis statement. And there are no grammatical errors at all. So sentence structure is great. Again, the organization is great. It's logical, and again, it's just coherent, and it makes sense. So good. And so what I wanted you to learn from this little activity with grammar and looking at writing is that you are qualified to assess communication skills, particularly compositional studies. Again, a lot of faculty are perhaps fearful that, oh wow, it's just been a while since I've actually looked at grammar. I know I struggle with grammar myself. How can I help a student when I don't feel comfortable or confident? Well, guess what? You do. You are qualified. It's just, again, recognizing and being cognizant of those choices. You just showed to me you can recognize quality work. You can recognize when there is fragmented writing, and you see how fragmented writing breaks down meaning, that the writer's thoughts are not articulated clear enough so that people can't understand what it is he or she has to say. So again, you can recognize that work. All of us in this room have an advanced degree of some sort, right? We have post-secondary college experience. We can engage with a variety of texts. We have writing experience ourselves. It might have been some time since you've written a paper, might not have been. But again, you have that experience that you can bring into your classroom to help teach communication skills to your students. Again, you can engage with a variety of texts. You are qualified and you can recognize good writing when you see it. You can also tell exactly when you don't, when you see bad writing or you see examples of writing that needs some work. You just shared with me that you can tell that student what's wrong with it. Well, here's a fragment. Here's a misspelled word. Here's a subject-verb agreement issue. Here's a verb tense issue. So again, you have the skills that you need to help assess. Again, it's just being cognizant and recognizing what it is that you're trying to share with your students and getting them, again, to see and recognize those rhetorical choices as well. To help you provide instruction and provide what it is we're asking you to do with the QEP, I think that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are a variety of resources that are already out there that we as English instructors use, communication instructors already use, that we can pull from. And I actually have several video links. I'm not going to share all of them with you, but I am going to share one with you and point you in the direction of the others so that you can actually see some really, really incredible tools that are out there to help you teach some writing skills and writing elements, compositional elements to your students. So we're going to look at some video instruction, and then I also have handouts for you that we're going to go through because these also can be helpful in the classroom as well. And then I want you to also not forget about our Oral and Written Communication Center. Our coordinator, the OWCC coordinator, Charles Dickerson, is in the process of developing the center, getting it up and going. We started with the RCC Writing Center, and then through our QEP, we developed it into a speech and writing center. So use that as a resource. Send your students over there for writing tutoring, for speech tutoring. There's a studio space in there. They can actually record speeches if they're not comfortable or familiar with doing, a home video and uploading that through YouTube. So again, there's just a lot of extra tools that don't feel like you as a faculty member have to do this by yourself. Use me. I'm more than willing to help you contribute information, resources within your classroom, content within activities that you want to incorporate. If you want me to come to your classroom to talk to your students, I'm happy to do that too. So again, don't just think I've got to do this by myself. We're here to help you. We want to implement our plan and be successful with it because we know it's going to do really good things for our students, and we want to provide the support that you need to make it happen. So let's take a look at some video links that can help you with writing assignments in your classroom. The first one deals with paragraphs. How many of you have your students write paragraph? I think we talked about this last time, and most people did some type of paragraph where you did a summary. I think some of you did also maybe like a cause and effect paper, maybe reasons for success or reasons that you can be successful academically, things of that nature. So the first one deals with just a paragraph. If I can get the mouse to, there it goes.
The ability to write a successful essay begins with the ability to write a strong paragraph. So I want to talk about basic paragraph structure and a little bit about what makes an effective paragraph. Okay, so every paragraph has the same three basic components. You have your topic sentence, your supporting sentences, and your concluding sentence. Now the topic sentence is important because it's the main idea of the entire paragraph. The supporting sentences have one job, which is to develop the main idea or to support the topic sentence with examples, detail, explanation. The concluding sentence is there to give the paragraph closure and to touch upon the main idea, to give the reader the idea that the topic is now finished and that you're moving on to something else. Okay, so the entire paragraph stems from the topic sentence. So it's really important to have a strong topic sentence. So let's look at an example of a good one. Taking too many university courses at once can have potentially serious consequences. Okay, so this is a strong topic sentence for a couple of reasons. One, it has a clear topic. In this case, taking too many university courses at once. Also, it has effective because it gives the reader an idea of what kind of paragraph they're going to be reading, whether it's descriptive, narrative, opinion-based, comparison. Now in this case, it's clearly going to be a paragraph discussing the effects of taking too many courses. All right, now let's look at 4 example topic sentences. You can even pause the video for a minute and look at these 4 sentences and decide which do you think is the strongest topic sentence here. All right, that was actually a bit of a trick question because none of these 4 sentences are strong topic sentences. Each of them is problematic in one way or another. So let's look at them. Number 1, 4 out of 5 teenagers in Canada have cell phones. Now the problem with that is that it's a fact, and therefore it's too specific, it's too narrow to be a topic sentence. There's no idea to develop in your supporting sentences. Number 2, driving is very stressful. That's also problematic, but for the opposite reason. It's too broad. It's too big of an idea. You have to be more specific, less generalized. Driving where or when? Stressful for whom? Number 3, how I learned to be more patient. Now this is a good topic, but it's not a topic sentence because it's incomplete. Make sure that your topic sentence has a clear subject, verb, and is a completed idea. Okay? Number 4, in this paragraph, I would like to discuss the importance of food in Italian culture. Now, this is a common mistake in topic sentences. Don't announce your topic. Don't tell the reader what you're going to discuss. Simply state your opinion or your main idea. Now, let's look at some revised versions of those sentences to see some improvements. Okay, number 1. Cell phones should be banned from classrooms for several reasons. Now, this is good because there's now an opinion. It's no longer a fact, and the writer has taken a clear position. Number 2, driving on the highway in heavy traffic is stressful for many motorists. Again, this is better because now it's more specific. 3, having a child taught me the importance of being patient. An improvement because you now have a clear subject, verb, and a complete thought. And number 4, food is an essential part of Italian culture. You're no longer announcing what you're going to discuss, so that's much better. Okay. Why don't you follow the link at the end of this video if you're interested in trying an exercise that's connected to this lesson.
All right, how many of you feel you could use that video link? Again, it's what, 4 minutes long, 4 minutes and a few seconds long. You could use that to show your students how to write a fully developed, coherent, clear paragraph. Yeah. And did it require a lot of effort on your part to have to incorporate that into your lesson plan? You think it would require a lot of effort to do that? No, again, it's a tool that's already out there. And again, taking, something that's there and just blending it with what you're already doing in your classroom. Again, adding the QEP element. All right, another, again, the gentleman that you just saw the video, Sean McLeod, he does a great series of compositional videos. So you can Google him. I can also provide you these links. But he does one for a basic essay structure, which is a similar format. He does one for summary. How many of you guys do a summary activity in your classroom already? Okay. Anybody? All right. So again, if you want to show some instruction, provide instruction for students on how to write a fully developed summary, show this video. It's just a few minutes long.
So we summarize all the time in our daily lives. You may summarize something interesting that you read in the news, or you may summarize a movie plot line for a friend, or a lesson for a classmate who has been sick and missed a class. And at some point in your academic career, you will have to write a summary, which is something that a lot of students find difficult. So I thought I would give you some tips on how to write an effective, successful summary. All right, now, it's important to remember that a summary needs to be clear to someone who has not read seen or heard the original material. Now you have to include all of the essential information that a person would need to understand without reading the original source. So you have to include all of the main points. Now that's pretty much what a summary is. It's important also to remember that you shouldn't go beyond the main points. It's important that a summary be as brief as possible, so you don't want to get too specific with details like numbers, statistics, dates, figures, that kind of thing, unless it's absolutely necessary for the reader to understand it.
Okay, and I'm going to stop it here in the sake of time because you get the gist of, again, these videos. And you can see he does a series. He's got a grammar series. He has, again, a writing series that you can draw from. It's simple, it's clear, and students understand it. A lot of the English faculty here use these video tools in our own classes when we introduce summary concepts or we introduce introductory paragraphs or different modes of writing. They come in very, very useful for us. And then the last link that I want to share with you is the Purdue OWL website. How many of you are familiar with that? It is probably one of the most renowned sites out there for English studies. And again, anything relative to academic writing. It is the Purdue Online Writing Lab. And again, you can see whatever it is you're looking for. If you're trying to help teach a research skill or citation, you can click on that link and it goes through different types of research elements. It goes through a style guide depending on what your discipline recommends, whether you're APA or MLA, those types of things. You can also click on if you want to just do a little grammar activity with them. You can click on the general writing tab, and it goes through writing process information in terms of drafting, revising, editing, academic writing elements, and there it is, grammar, our wonderful friend, right? And you can click on these links for, again, additional information. Just taking an extra 2 to 5 minutes of your class time just to share a tip with them on how they can improve their writing will make all the difference in the world for your students in terms of improving their communication skills. So using these video links, using these tools to help you teach writing would be very beneficial. And then the other items I wanted to share with you are in your packet. I put together handouts that, again, English instructors already use to help teach compositional elements. And the first one you have is a topic sentence practice activity, where, remember how in the video the guy talked about, Mr. McLeod talked about, having that clear topic sentence, having a clear main idea that's stated, providing relative support and information, and then, going into a logical conclusion. You can see how you could take a topic. You can pick something within your area. You can limit that and narrow it down, add some type of opinion to it, again, to formulate a topic sentence. There's also an activity here that you could do that would take you 30 seconds. Look at the second one. Many people are addicted to soap operas. That's your topic sentence. Which one of these following examples actually support that topic sentence directly? Viewers get caught up in the story. Does that relate? Yep. People care about the characters? Yes. Soap operas are often springboards for actors wanting more? Yeah, that's really off topic. Good job. So you caught that one. People are anxious to see what happens next? Yep. It's mindless but entertaining TV? Could be. It might be dependent on your opinion, but it's probably not going to be the best one to support, again, why someone gets addicted to soap operas. Viewers are often strongly identify with the characters. Yes. CBS has had the #1 soap opera for years. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you agree that it does or doesn't, but that does not directly reflect that topic sentence. So again, this took 30 seconds to do. So little activities like that you can incorporate within your classroom instruction, again, will help students start thinking critically about their rhetorical choices. The next page goes over to a thesis activity. So if they're writing a longer framework, so if they're writing an essay, again, not just a paragraph, we know that a little bit more goes into that. You can show the video clip from Mr. McLeod about how to write a successful essay, talking about essay structure. This deals with thesis statements. We know that in writing, again, if you don't have a clear main idea, how hard is it for somebody to follow your thought process through the written word? It's virtually impossible if the main idea is not present. So again, these are activities and things you can incorporate within your classroom. The next handout is a persuasive essay handout. I'm not going to go into detail on it. It just depends on the activities that you want to incorporate. If you're wanting them to do some type of persuasive, argumentative writing, this would be a good, handout that you could incorporate into your classroom. There's also a graphic organizer for a persuasive essay. The graphic organizer, though, doesn't have to reflect a persuasive essay. It can be any mode of writing, any type of writing. We know that you have to, again, have that clear thesis statement. We have to have major points of interest, major ideas, major points to help illustrate that thesis. And then through those major points of interest, we know that we have to explain and elaborate them with facts, with statistics, with clear examples, illustrations, again, to make our points known to our readers. It's part of articulating your thoughts properly, again, through the written word. You can also do an outline. There's a basic outline down here at the bottom of that graphic organizer. It's not formal. It's not Roman numerals with A and B, right? But it's just a basic outline that lets students know if you're going to write an essay, you need an introduction, you need a body, and you need a conclusion. You'll see when Professor Pan and when Professor Fairley share their ideas with you, you'll notice that there are very similar elements. Speaking and writing go hand in hand. And so again, knowing that you need, again, intro, body, conclusion, if you start letting students know that this is the expectation, it will transcend and it will carry over in other areas. There are checklists on here, so you can do a sample checklist. We talked a little bit last time about doing a workshop with students when we had our last training, to take a little bit of class time and let them pair off with another peer within their class and share, let each other read their, switch off and read their papers. Use this checklist. You have to give students guidance with what you're asking them to do, but you can look and just the first question, what does it say? Yes. I mean, we can recognize that. Most people can. If you can't answer definitively, yes, it does, then guess what? It probably doesn't. And that author, that student author needs to know that. So again, using these checklists can also help you as well. There's a paragraph checklist going through that actually also breaks down sentence skill issues, all the way from fragments to correct paper format. Again, MLA style, APA style, whatever you are requiring of your students when you ask them to do a writing assignment. There is a rubric in here that you can use to help modify an activity within your classroom, a writing activity. You can also use this, again, with the QEP rubrics that are already in our QEP document. So again, ways to help you incorporate writing activities in your classroom. There are writer's workshop questions. So again, if you want to take a few minutes in class and do a writer's workshop, this gives a student clear direction on what I'm looking for from a reader's perspective. The interesting thing is that once students start looking at other people's paper through a critical lens in terms of these questions, it causes them to start thinking critically about their own rhetorical choices. You'll hear students say, well, I didn't get a good proofread, or this person, she didn't really give me good feedback. But that's not what this is about. It's about you looking at someone else's paper it causes you to start thinking critically about your own choices, your own language use, your own ideas, and how you put them on paper. So it causes you, again, to think about how other people are going to perceive your words and what it is you have to say. So Writer's Workshop, again, is not just proofreading time. It serves a multiple purpose, if you will, in terms of getting students to think critically about their rhetorical choices. And then we also know that metacognition, with, again, process writing, so you're looking at drafting, writing, revising, editing. It all goes into a process, but it doesn't really stop there. You want to reflect. How many of you do a reflection activity, a what did you learn activity in your classroom? Okay. If you're not, I encourage you to start doing that. Again, metacognition is a great way for students, again, to conceptualize the knowledge and content that you're asking them to know, regardless of whether it's discipline-specific content, definitions, again, things that are relative only to your field of study, but it also gets them, again, to think about rhetorical choices, how they articulate their knowledge to somebody else. So again, reflection is a great tool to use. And you can morph and modify these questions to suit the particular activity that you've asked students to do, but I've just given you some examples that you might want to use for reflection. The other handouts that you have, I'm not going to go through. Those are actually handouts that we used when author DJ Henry was here back in the first part of August when we came back for faculty and staff development. She did a lot on the whole communications process with reader response, summary response, interview, role play. So again, she covered the whole communications process. And I'm not going to go into a lot of that because, again, Professor Pan and Professor Fairley will talk to you more about the oral component once we get to that. And so, again, thinking about these tools. Now, I want you to take just a minute, about 5 minutes actually, and I want you can get with a partner, and I want you to think of, in terms of the things that we've just talked about that I shared with you, the video links, anything in the handout, and think about things that you can incorporate in your classroom. And pick one that you find value in, that you know that you can use this to add a communication component to your course content. You can add a communication activity. So take about, actually, in the sake of time, take about 2 to 3 minutes to do this, and then we're going to just share them quickly. Is it on pause?
It's still on.
Oh, okay.
It's fast. I'm gonna hit record here in a second. It only records 20-minute segments.
Okay, we're just about finished with this part anyway, so.
Okay, well, what I'm gonna do is, I've got to leave here by 3:30.
Okay.
And Andy's coming here. He'll be here by, he'll be here before the next 20 minutes is up. What I didn't want you to be concerned when I left.
Oh, that's fine.
He's gonna come back in.
That's fine.
And record again.
That's fine. Thank you.
Somebody said,
I do like this one because it pretty much shows you a little bit of everything.
About what they know.
all right.
Okay. Somebody share one tool that you feel that you can use effectively to incorporate QEP elements in your classroom. One tool that you
already use or we will use?
that you learned about today.
I would use the video, sure.
Okay.
That's what I wrote.
The videos? All right. What about maybe the grammar quiz? Could you see doing a little bit of just a little grammar 5-question quiz could cause them to think critically about their own writing, or even have them to write a sentence and then see if they could find an issue with it.
I actually did a piece of that in class today, just tossing out sentences and letting them tell me whether or not they were good sentences or bad sentences, because we've been looking at the rubrics because we're getting ready for our career presentation.
Right. Okay, good.
I like your checklist too. Look at that, I mean, that, you can hand it out in class and say, oh, so you're doing it? Check. Remind yourself.
Yeah, and you wouldn't necessarily have to do a partner with that. You could have them to do it on their own paper. So sometimes though when you're working with a partner, again, you get that different perspective and you're looking for other things that you might not recognize in your own work. Okay. All right, good. So again, I just wanted to give you additional tools, resources, and ideas to help you implement a writing activity within your classroom. The other thing I want you to take away from this is that writing is social, right? How many of your students, and we do this too, we write like we speak. Again, speaking and writing go hand in hand. And so if we look at what our QEP can do, and knowing that it does have potential to do great things on many levels, it starts with recognizing that language is social. You're not trying to detract from a student's upbringing, student's home life, student's culture, but we know that within the academic realm and within the professional realm, there is a language discourse that's appropriate, right? And so it's getting students to be cognizant of their language choices so that they write appropriately within that context. We know that they're not going to write a note to their minister like they would write to a peer or a text, right? We know that they're not, we hope not, okay? They might, and if they do, then that's another learning opportunity, okay? But to know that it's, again, language is social and that they have to recognize that they make rhetorical choices every day. And they are held accountable for their choices, those language choices. The other part to this is that we need to, again, hold them to a higher standard for using standard English. That is, our QEP SLOs are specific to that. So if you are not, again, holding them accountable for their grammar, for their sentence, their syntax, for their sentence structure, for anything that is grammatically related, then again, we are doing them a disservice, and we're also not fulfilling the SLO for our QEP. So that's something that we have to keep at the forefront of what we're doing. That's why I gave you the grammar activities in your handout so that you can do some of those in your classroom with students. And again, to help them make a conscious effort to improve their writing. The more that we reinforce our goals with them and our expectations, the better that we're going to be in terms of implementing our plan, and the more successful that we will be. I want to thank you for coming again today. This concludes our writing part of our training, and that just knowing that together we are going to make a positive difference in the lives of our students and the quality of education that we provide here at Richmond Community College. So again, I want to thank you for your time and effort in making our QEP a success, because we are for sure going to be successful with this. We're going to take about a 5-minute break. If you want to run to the restroom, grab some water, grab another snack, and then we'll come right back and begin the oral communications component of our training.
Most people, when they are asked about their greatest fears, will identify public speaking immediately. In fact, most people identify public speaking before they identify death. as one of their greatest fears. Jerry Seinfeld has a great bit in which he tells us that, well, actually, if you're a funeral, apparently you're better off in the box than giving the eulogy, you know? So people really do have issues with standing up and giving a presentation. So they avoid it, although 80% of business executives tell us that the new hires need what? Just what you have in your QEP, written and oral communication skills. Well, you have some business executives who will say, you know, sometimes I have to go behind the new hires after they've worked with my clients and do damage control because they're so lacking in oral communication skills. But you know, it's not only the business executives. Hairdressers need good communication skills. Landscapers need good communication skills. Boy Scout leaders need good oral communication skills. So our students are left in this position where they need all these oral communication skills. They don't always get to take a public speaking class. They don't always buy into the fact that they need these oral communication skills. So one of the things that I hope you'll do in your classes is try to get them to buy into it and let them know that this is not just another hurdle, but something that'll help them in interviews, that'll help them no matter what field they decide to go into. They're also at a disadvantage that, maybe with a couple of exceptions in the room, you know, some of our students do less face-to-face interaction with their peers than we did. Because if they want to communicate with someone, what do? Text it, right. So they don't have the experience even that we did. So what I want to do today is help you help them get over this stumbling block, you know. So I'm going to give you some tools and links and exercises and ideas that I hope you'll be able to use in your classes. We're going to talk a little bit about anxiety. Some of your students experience anxiety when you ask them to speak. We're going to talk a little bit about delivery, just a little bit, give you a couple of exercises. And we're going to talk a little bit about using visual aids. I want to start with anxiety. Now, if you'll look in your folders, there's a little packet of information, handouts that I brought. The first one on the top is a sporting analogy. Many of my students at Wingate are athletes, student athletes. And I do not have an athletic bone in my body. So I started spending some time thinking about that, looking for common ground. And I realized, for example, my football players have to be every morning at a workout at 6:30 in the morning. And they go. They have to come back to campus sooner than all the other students. They have to drag out of bed when they don't feel like it. And I said, well, you know, when you want to get good at football or singing or painting or public speaking, you need to practice. You practice when you don't feel like it. You practice early. You practice often, right? And they can see this analogy to the other things that they have bought into, right? So I came up with all these things that are analogous to good public speaking skills, and that list there, practice every day. Now we talk too about coaches. I say, is your coach just the nicest guy you ever met? And often they'll say, no, not every day, you know. So I say, you know what? Let your coach pat you on the back sometimes. Let your coach encourage you. But here's the other thing. As good coaches, when you're working with the student, when students are working with each other, it's really important to be willing to give suggestions for getting better. And we do a lot of oral feedback in my class. And I say, now look, you're not beating anybody up. You're giving them a suggestion for doing a better job. And couched in those terms, they seem to be much more receptive to say, well, this is just like when somebody tells me to work on technique and that sort of thing. I talk to them about having a game face. If you're nervous, and you probably will be, you don't have to flag that to everybody. I talked to them about creating a home field advantage. I was so happy Althea and I got here early and I found my space and I said, oh, can I have a lectern? And she found one for me. I immediately upon arrival said, are we in the same room we were last time? So talk to students about, do for public speaking everything you would do for sports. Create that home field advantage, get a coach, okay? So enough of that, you have that, and I think that you guys can pull out some other things that will work for you. But for my students, they seem to really like that. The next thing that I talk to my students about with anxiety is making eye contact. Did you know, are any of you first responders, paramedics, medically trained, any of you? Do you know that paramedics and police officers are both trained so that when they arrive on the scene of an incident, one of the first things they will say to a victim is, look at me, look at me, calm down. If you think about your parents, often they said to you, now look at me. It gets attention and it really has a calming influence on both parties. It seems counterintuitive to students sometimes because they're taught incorrectly so many things. There's so many myths out there about eye contact. Every semester I have someone come to me who says, well, I was told just to look at a point on the wall and just talk to the wall and that way I won't be so nervous. And I like to tell them, you know, that's a lot like talking to a brick wall. You know, eye contact will be calming. I have students who tell me that they've been coached to look at someone's forehead. I say, no, eye contact will calm you down. And you know, the worst one of all, students are sometimes coached to imagine people in their underwear. And I promise I'm not going to do that, okay? I think how dreadful, that would really make me nervous. So I encourage them to connect, really, really connect, and see how important eye contact is. I also tell them to look for the friendly faces. Without fail, there is always somebody in every audience who is just the best listener, and they smile and they make eye contact and they stay engaged, and that's like your own personal little cheerleader, you know. And I have to tell them this, in every crowd there's always someone who is engaged in something else, who is distracted, who has a chip on their shoulder, who's sick, who's distressed, and you know what I tell them? Forget about them. It's normal for them to be there. And if you can reach out to them, that's fine. But sometimes that's a more advanced skill. Let them be and talk to the ones who are already in that moment. Does that make sense to you? So in order to show how important that is, one of the things that I do is an eye contact exercise. You also have two handouts regarding this eye contact exercise. One, the first page on the top is instructions for you, and it tells you a little bit about what we actually do. And the other one is one that if you choose to use this exercise in your class, cut this in half and have a pile of listening instructions and a pile of speaking instructions. Let me tell you a little bit about what we do. The whole exercise is really an eye contact exercise, but it is cloaked as a listening exercise. So I will give you each a sheet of paper. You get different instructions, and I tell you, be sure to read only your sheet, don't read your partner's. You divvy up into partners, and you may be told, think of something you can talk about for 8 solid minutes. It can be your children, it can be your grade school teachers, it can be the last athletic event you went to, but you have to speak uninterrupted for 8 minutes, and you'll want to give them a minute to sort of assimilate. What can I blather on about for 8 minutes? The other person gets instructions that say, for the first 2 minutes, you're going to listen as normal. At the end of 2 minutes, your instructor is going to give you a secret code. For me, I usually walk over to the window in my classroom and look at it. Then they're not paying attention to me because I'm just the teacher in the background, right? But when I go look out the window, all the listeners drop their eye contact. And I make specific instructions. Don't make it real abrupt that you've received a code and pick up your phone, but make it more subtle. Okay? And don't make any eye contact at all by the end of the 2 minutes. 2 minutes later, start making very intense eye contact. And then 2 minutes later, go back to normal listening. Okay? Now, at the end of the time, I ask the students to take a moment and reflect, to do a little metacognition. I tell them I'm not going to take this up, so I want you to be honest and tell me your impressions of this exercise. And usually that helps them think a little bit because they're not on the spot in front of everyone else. Then I ask them, tell me out loud how you felt about doing this exercise. And it is so often I will have people who were speakers have wadded up their paper, because they're adapting to that nervous energy. I have speakers who say, I just really felt like what I had to say wasn't interesting at all. I was boring her to death. And they even say, after a couple minutes, I could tell she just wasn't listening anymore. And then after a while, I could tell she was trying to listen again, but I still knew I was boring. Meanwhile, the people who are doing the listening, but they know that the experiment is really about eye contact, will say, I felt so rude. And so once you reveal that what the exercise is about, that it's about eye contact, and that its influence on the flow of communication is very real, they start to realize that when I have the floor, I really must connect with you. I can't just speak out the words to the wall. And actually in the classroom it gives them a much better audience. Okay. So that's another thing that you might want to think about doing in class. The third thing that I want to tell you about is desensitization through experience. Just get them on their feet any way you can. What you did for me before we started, just tell me your name, tell me one sentence about who you are, is a start. I have a show and tell exercise that I do every semester, and the student brings an object that represents something significant to them, something they can tell a story about. And I say, you cannot be incorrect here. It's your story. And no one is more knowledgeable about your object than you are. And they bring often very emotional objects. They'll bring their baby blanket or their teddy bear or the Bible or something that reminds them of their grandmother. For your classes, tweak that a little bit and say, bring something that represents your success as a student. And they might bring their phone, their notebook, their laptop, and really talk about how that's going to contribute to their success. Does that make sense? And it stays right on theme, right on target for the things that you're talking about in class. If the show and tell exercise doesn't work for you, and you can make up your own rules about that, right? It can be as long or as short as you like it to be. Another exercise I have, and if you'll flip over again, you'll see some sample impromptu quotations. And these are just little quotations that I thought were relevant to my classroom. Maybe you have others that are relevant to you, but these will get you started. On almost any website that works with quotations, you can go to bartleby.com and some of those and type in success or students or learning and get a bunch of quotations about that. But what you do is you'll let students come up with a quotation, and then if you look on the second page, the next page, it'll give you some ideas about how to tell them to begin to organize impromptu speeches, because even an impromptu speech needs to have a clear beginning, middle, and end. So you tell them, okay, think about your quotation, get attention, state whether you agree or disagree, preview what your main points are going to be, right? And then go through the body. So hopefully that handout will give you some ideas about how you can work with impromptu quotations. And again, you can do that a lot of ways. Give them a couple of minutes after they draw their topic, and then ask them to speak a couple of minutes. And give them half an hour, you know, if you want. But use that in whatever way works best in your classroom. The final speech that I have that's real simple and can cut across a lot of lines is the awards presentation. I do that at the end of the semester. Our classes are such that the students do get to know each other a little bit. By the end of the semester, they know most of their own names. That was tough, I tell you. They know each other's names usually. They can remember that first speech you had to give. And we can remember maybe some of the things you ran into or some of the things that you shared with us. And I encourage them to maybe make notes about each speech, because I'm going to give oral feedback anyway, right? So I'm going to say, okay, Susie spoke too fast, but she was nice and loud, right? But by the end of the semester, I've got 2 or 3 notes about what Susie did. So I tell them to present an award. And the instructions are right here, but think about an individual student. Create an award. So right here I have some of the awards that have been given in my classroom. The Life Preserver Award for the person who showed the best perseverance. The Coaches Award for the one who gave the best verbal feedback. Someone who came out of his shell receives the Out of His Shell Award. The Pressure Washer Award was a wonderful award last semester. Someone actually brought a pressure nozzle, like fits on the bottom of the end of a garden hose, and said, I couldn't even tell that they were stressed, because it made it look like all that stress and pressure went away. Someone received the Goldfish Award because that's the snack that smiles back. And they said, every time I gave a speech, this person was smiling and encouraging me all the way, and I feel really good about that. So the kids really like getting their awards. It's a fun day, and they don't even realize that they're learning. So they enjoy doing that, and that gives them a chance to show some of their creativity too. Let's see. The next thing that I want to talk to you a little bit about is delivery. And again, I want to reiterate what Ms. Hunsucker said. You are so qualified to assess delivery skills. You've been through job interviews, you've supervised a classroom, you've evaluated 100 presentations, maybe 1,000, you know, so you have those skills. So feel confident in that. Okay. I talk to students about is rate, and I tell them, you know, especially when you're nervous, your rate tends to go up because you're going to get a shot of adrenaline, okay? And that's, you know, my psychologist and counselor friends about the fight or flight syndrome. Well, I tell them that they're not allowed to fight, you know, and I don't let them run away either. So they have this extra burst of energy. And I encourage them to be aware of it, to rein it in, and realize the effect it's going to have on them is to make them tempted to go really fast. I have a video that's fun, really. I won't show you the whole video. Well, maybe I won't show you any of the video. Here we go. You get a... I'm sorry I have to watch the commercial, but... Now, before this starts, I want to prep you a little bit and tell you, these folks are debaters. And in debate, you have 8 minutes to put in your entire argument. And at the end of that 8 minutes, whether you made that argument or not, your time is up. But the judges often know the content of the arguments in advance because they know the resolutions. So what the students are often taught to do is speak as quickly as they can. All right? And here's what happens.
Increasing amount according to the 1% of the country to not the 3% the economy of every mobile producer is actually always priced differently than it 15 years ago. So say if there was a field. Oh, that yes, all seconds where less cases goes away. You know, when science discovered this is overcome. Serious narratives shall public make act more public. Your students will be more than links made on the K. Also, wanting to hydrate people.
I'm a 12th grader at Lexington High School. I've been involved in the policy debate team for all 4 years of my high school experience. I've been doing debate since my freshman year. I didn't sign up for it originally, but when I was...
Okay, and that's all you really need to show them. That's what it sounds like with adrenaline. And then follow that with, have you ever had a teacher who went over the material too quickly? And they remember that frustration, and they'll try to save their audience. So that's a fun link to show the audience, show your speakers, and remind them of what happens when they go too fast. Another problem with delivery is students often want to come and read in the very things they complain about teachers. They want to read in a monotone. They just want to bring a written paper and read it. And I try to say, you know, this is giving a speech. This is not reading out loud. But I talk to them about vocal emphasis. For example, one of the sentences we practice with is, I like your shoes. 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 And I change the meaning. And it's something so simple that we might not think about. But the students are surprised sometimes to realize that I can take one sentence and just by the way I say it, give it four completely different meanings. I also have a favorite sentence that I like to read to my students. In preparation for the I have to do it incorrectly first. In preparation for the 1963 March on Washington, the Riverside Church in New York used over 5 tons of American cheese to make 80,000 cheese sandwiches to send to the marchers. And most people look about like you do right now. Yes, oh, and once it's over, right? And then I say, in preparation for the 1963 March on Washington, the Riverside Church in New York used over 5,000 tons of cheese to make 80,000 cheese sandwiches for the marchers. 80,000. And again, what may seem like it comes very simply to experienced teachers comes as a surprise to students when you juxtapose the two readings. So find yourself one simple sentence with a couple of statistics, maybe a very impressive sentence, and then just read it as if you were reading out loud without feeling. And they get that. We have another exercise we do sometimes regarding volume. And you might want to be careful where you do this exercise. But research tells us that 1 in 5 students, under 20 and under, has a measurable hearing deficit. Now, Apple gets blamed for a lot of that. But they don't realize they don't hear very well, not as well as we did. And I like to remind them often, look, I'm a lot older than you, and it gets tougher. So we have an exercise we do called, Can You Hear Me Now? And particularly if you have some folks who are really soft-spoken, as we go outside with it sometimes. And the ones who want to hold their head down and say, can you hear me now? Well, I physically tell them to go across the quad. And, can you hear me now? And they have to answer each other. And that seems to, once you get somebody over the hump, it's easier to pull them back if you can get them to over-exaggerate at first. Does that make sense? So we do that too. The next thing that I talk about in terms of delivery is something that Ms. Hunsucker alluded to a little bit with writing, is the difference between a regional or cultural dialect and not using standard English. Standard professional English. I have a couple fun videos, if I can get back to them. PowerPoint slide.
All the way over there. One more. No, other way. One more.
I'm coming. I can't get my mouse over there. There we go. All right. This is Amy Walker, and you'll like her. I think.
No, that's my spelling.
What's it?
Hello, my name is Amy Walker. I'm 25 years old and I was born in London, England. Right, I'm Amy Walker. I'm 25 years old and I was born in London. Well, yes, hello. My name is Amy Walker. I'm 25 years old and I was born in London, England. That's right. My name is Amy Walker and I was born in Jordan, Ireland. Hi, how are you? I'm Amy Walker. I'm 25. I was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Of course, I'm Scottish. I'm a walker, aren't I? Walking like a strawberry. It comes in a wee tent with a tartan on it. Well, my name is Amy Walker and I'm from my dad. Good luck. My name is Amy Walker. I'm 25 years old and I was born in Berlin, Germany. Hello, my name is Amy Walker. I was born in Prague, which is called Prague, in Czech Republic. Hello, my name is Amy Walker and I'm from Moscow, in Russia. Bonjour, je m'appelle Amy Walker. J'ai 25 ans and I was born in Paris, in France. Hi, I'm Amy Walker. I'm 25 and I was born in Sydney, Australia. Yes, hello, I'm Amy Walker. I'm 27, no, 25, and I was born in Wellington, New Zealand. G'day, I'm Amy Walker, I'm sure it wasn't That's right. I'll always call Australia home. Well, hi there, how are you doing? I'm Amy Walker. I'm 25 years old and I was born in Texas. Hello, I'm Amy Walker. I'm 25 and I was born in California, LA. Hello, I'm Amy Walker. I'm 25 and I was born in Seattle, Washington. Well, hello, I'm Amy Walker. I'm 25 years old and I was born in Toronto, Canada. What? Of course I'm doing the thing. Sorry. I'm Amy Walker. I'm 25 and I was born in Brooklyn. Hi there. My name is Amy Walker. I'm 25 years old and I was born in Charleston, South Carolina. Oh, hello. My name is Amy Walker and I'm an actress and a writer and a singer and a dancer. And I was down here today to give you an example of the transatlantic accent I was trained in 1945. So this computer's our little program for you this evening. We do hope you enjoy yourself as much as I have. Thank you. and good night.
Isn't she fun? Okay, so Miss Walker is going to be able to clearly communicate in lots of places around the world. And those various dialects wouldn't hurt her a bit. There's nothing wrong with having a regional or cultural dialect. And I like to tell them that, you know, just as one language is not superior to another, one dialect is not superior to another. However, you might get into a little bit of trouble if you start deviating from standard English. You do sloppy articulation, you omit sounds, you blend words together, and you use a lot of slang. And I'm going to see if I can find the next video. You guys know this fellow, right? Oh boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeff Foxworthy.
Let's see if we're here.
We don't have in other parts of the country. When you come to the South, we have words like yump to. We go in the mall, yump to. What letter does that start with? Does anybody know? I like this word a lot. I. That's a word in Texas, I. Real last time every day you hear somebody say, hey, G yet? No, G? Yump to? I. I think probably my favorite Southern word of all time, my dad will use this word. Like if dogs come in his yard, my dad will run out on the porch and holler, "You not him."
Okay. So, there's a big difference in those. So, I think it's okay to encourage our students to be who they are, and things like drawls and twangs and nasalities, that's okay. That's part of your identity. But to say, I do know how to crisply make my letters, I do know how to use proper grammar, is another matter altogether. And I think juxtaposing these two videos helps them understand that. Another thing that you might want to talk to students about is pronunciation. No, to mispronounce a word when you're giving a speech really destroys your credibility. It is the equivalent of a bunch of typos on your resume. And I like to talk to them, and he says, well, it's just one. The students have said this to me, it's really just one word. I didn't know what it meant, so I just said it quickly. And I say, okay, right, like that athlete you tell me about, Derek Jeter, is that the one? You know, and they don't like that. I say, oh, Lady Gaga. You know, and they said, you can't do that. And I said, well, you just told me it's okay. So give them some examples that'll help them understand how that destroys their credibility. Because if I come off and I give a speech about Lady Gaga, they're going to give me a hard time, you know. So think about that. The final thing that I want to share with you is about visual aids. And there are some exceptions. If you're doing a lecture, which people have to retain a lot of information, and you're not giving handouts, sometimes you have to make some exceptions. But typically, I tell them that this thing is here to complement you. It is not to compete with you. So put one image on a slide at a time, just one. Slides are free. It doesn't cost extra to have two. Okay? Typically, the word on the street is to limit to 7 words on a slide if it's just for understanding. Okay, I don't have to take notes on it. I just have to get the new information. You probably read the rule of 7 when you did journalism. 7 words in a headline, 7 words in an advertising slogan, and 7 words on a visual aid slide. A fellow that did a really funny video about PowerPoint, and he tells you many of the pitfalls of PowerPoint, and he calls it Death by PowerPoint. I'm going to show you the 4-minute version, and that's what you'll get a link to, but in case you're feeling kind of crazy, you need to know that he also has a 9-minute version of Death by PowerPoint. So this is Don McClellan. Okay, here we go again. Maybe.
There's some things I hate about PowerPoint, and I figure it's kind of my duty to point them out. So here we go. Here's common PowerPoint mistakes. Number one, people tend to put every word they're going to say on their PowerPoint slides. Although this eliminates the need to memorize your talk, ultimately this makes your slides crowded, wordy, and boring. You will lose your audience's attention before you even reach the bottom of your first slide. Please don't do that anymore, please. Number two, most common, many people do not run spell check. Big mistake. Nothing makes you look stupider than spelling errors. If it's got a red line under it, recheck the spelling. And finally, I hate this. Avoid excessive bullet pointing, only bullet key points. Too many bullet points, and your key messages will not stand out. In fact, the term bullet point comes from people firing guns at annoying presenters. Hence the bullet point. Bad color schemes, not good. Clashing background and font colors can lead to distraction, confusion, headache, nausea, vomiting, and loss of bladder control. I can't stay on that one too long. Here's something I've noticed. The number of PowerPoint slides you have in your talk, the less useful your talk actually is. Unfortunately, my presentation is right there. Also notice this, people love to pack data into their presentations. They shove more and more data thinking it's better, but it's not. The more data you have, the harder it is to read your slide, and the effectiveness plummets. Now you can improve the effectiveness by adding some shading and some 3D effects, and then some second order and third order effects, and then, I know, let's add some labels, that'll help a lot. And that's pretty much every marketing slide I've ever seen right there. Then some like VP of marketing stay there going, it's real clear in Q4. What the hell are you talking about? Now, I'm into in animation. People become animators in PowerPoint. You can have things flying all over the place, and that can be good. If you're a visual learner, that will improve the effectiveness of your performance. But if you're easily distracted, more animations, and people have no idea what you're talking about. They're just, wow, that is cool, wow. And there's regions here, by the way. There's the simple but effective region. There's the active but confusing, the effective and boring, the active but ineffective, the dull but static region, the busy but useless, the ADD only region, the useful but amusing, the stupid but confusing, the dull triangle, the hyper triangle, the sleepy square, the dizzying pentagon, and everything else I just call pointless motion. That slide right there took me an hour and a half to make, right there. PowerPoint can just suck the life out of you. It's amazing. I've also come up with this. It's a kind of a little science I've invented called font analysis. Basically, the font you choose says something about who you are as a person. There's a huge list of fonts, and you choose one, and that says something about you. So be careful the font you choose. For example, if you choose Courier New, which happens to be my favorite, you're probably organized in structure. If you choose Matisse, it means you're artistic. And if you choose Times New Roman, it means you're lazy, apathetic, and unimaginative, and you always use the default.
So, and if you want more of that, it is there for your perusal. So, let's see. Now, I'm working really hard on finding the pause here, Althea. Okay, so you know you're going to have to do the same assignment. We're going to talk about which of these exercises could you use in your classroom. So I'll quickly review, okay? We talked about the sports analogy. the eye contact, the importance of eye contact exercise. We talked about desensitization through getting them on their feet, the show and tell exercise, impromptu speaking, an awards ceremony. We talked about showing them the rate, the debaters. We talked about vocal emphasis exercises, I like your shoes, or 80,000 cheese sandwiches. We talked about cultural dialect versus standard English. We talked about pronunciation. And of course, we talked about visual aids and how to let those complement you rather than compete with you. So if you'll take just a couple of moments and maybe work with a partner and talk it out about what might you be able to use in your classroom. And then we'll get back together.
A couple which we would just make.
There's some bit by PowerPoint. Giving presentations in my psych class about how we give presentations. I'm gonna go find that link and show you because they, no matter what I do, it's all simple background and they want to use red background. Right. And you might even have
Do you have some? How about you? Did you have some?
Yeah, death by PowerPoint. Students want to include way too much stuff on their PowerPoints, so that will be useful.
Okay. And I can't remember everybody's name.
Marvina, I think probably I would try and get them to use more visual aids when they're doing presentations. They have a tendency to want to read from their paper. So I would definitely work with them with using more visual aids and also PowerPoint.
I talked to them about, along with notes, there is a magnetic power of visual aids that even though I created the visual aid, I selected the image, suddenly in front of an audience, when I put it up on the screen, magnetically my eyes turn to it and I turn my back on the audience. And sometimes it's just one simple image, a picture of, you know, my mother's face, as if I have to turn and look, you know. So I don't know why, but so be sure to tell them that hello?
They're probably calling for a counselor. There's a phone.
So, I love that death by PowerPoint because he so clearly makes those points. But one thing he doesn't talk about is that temptation to let it replace you or to turn away from that important eye contact. Did either of you have something you could use?
I like this sporting analogy. I thought it would be useful. I have a football player. Shine. I really think he would get a lot of it.
Well, you know, I didn't go over everything on it, but things like if you fumble, as if I really knew what fumbling meant. If you fumble, just move on. Do not dwell on it. Don't flag it. And in fact, I love the business of a timeout. I started talking about, just pause for a moment. And as soon as I suggested, almost every student would bring their water. And God love them. They get tongue-tied and they will dutifully take their little sip of water, and it gives them a moment to collect their thoughts. And that's all they need. So thank you for liking that. I think it's served me well. So.
I like the uninterrupted listing exercise. I think that is really good. And I would use the jet box or the video. Our students, many of them would relate to that.
eye contact exercise.
And remember, we have to make a point of not telling them it's an eye contact exercise. Okay, we tell it. When you pass it out, it looks like a listening exercise. So.
I like the eye contact, but I also like the high school debate, even when in small group.
And they really get it when you say, again, find the common ground and say, have you ever had a teacher who went over the material too fast? And all of a sudden they realize what a horror show that is, and they make a point of trying to slow down. So, good.
Well, I liked all of it. I can use something from everything that you gave, but I particularly like the impromptu outline that you presented, because I think a lot of faculty sometimes are maybe confused or don't feel confident that they can teach. How do I teach a speech to my students? And even though this is a short impromptu exercise, you still have an introduction, you still have your main points, your main idea that you're trying to make, supporting evidence, and a conclusion. And a formal speech doesn't stray from that format.
Right.
It's still the same, it's just,
Right.
Again, there's formality, and the length is a little bit longer. So I particularly like this, and I think faculty can get a lot of use from this.
And I hope this is not confusing. With my 5 subpoints under main points, those are different structures a student might choose to use. And sometimes when students do a lot of impromptu, they'll get stock things and they say, no matter what I draw, I'm going to talk about it on the local level, state level, and national level. Boom. You know, or no matter what I draw, I'm going to talk about economically, morally, and spiritually. So that gives them somewhere to go. And you can tell them, look, you've got a couple minutes. You don't have to just pull it out of your head. You can say, you know, I'm going to organize it, preview it, go over it. And that really makes them feel, once they get that they get to say it more than once. And I tell them too, another thing is, sometimes public speaking as you give it sounds a little bit redundant. Because they say, I already said that in the preview. I went over it in the body. I say, it may sound redundant, but you have to realize your audience doesn't have a written paper to go back and consult. If they miss something at any point, you give them another opportunity. And so they seem to be good with the fact that it's okay to reiterate ideas. So with all of that said, death being our, number 2 fear behind public speaking, I hope that some of these exercises for you will turn that stumbling block into something that looks more like a stepping stone. So, thank you for your time.
This afternoon. Yes, yes you have. And we're just going to wrap up the fun. All right, so you have gotten all the ABCs of what you need for giving a presentation, and to segue on the informal speech outline. In one of your handouts, there's a speech outline that you might consider a little more formal, and this is the one that students use in 231 a lot. And I tell the students, they have all the tools to help them put together a good presentation altogether, because they've been writing in various levels. And basically everything they need to know to organize a speech, they've learned in composition. Introduction, body, conclusion. The only thing they won't be doing is giving the audience a word-for-word transcript of what it is they're going to say. So this outline can help your students organize their presentations. I have them put together a complete introduction. The T's stand for transitions, a transitional sentence to move them from one part of the speech to the next. Transition to move them from the introduction to the body, transitions to move them from various points in the body of the speech, and also transitions to take them from the body of the speech to the conclusion. And they'll also give a complete conclusion. And before the students speak, they have to show me one of these before each speech. And I always tell them, after you give me the outline, if you decide you want to choose another topic, fine. I'm fine with that because all I want to see is your organization. I want to see when I read your introduction, I know what the main point of the speech is going to be. I'm going to see that at the end of your introduction. I want to see how you organize the body, want to see how you organize the conclusion. I tell them, you have up until 30 minutes before you give the speech to change your topic, although you probably don't want to do that. But if you are not bound by what you show me, because they have to show me this pretty early, I just want to see if they can organize. So if you're gonna find that the key to helping your students do well is that if they're relaxed with the process, because already they're fretting about doing it. If they're relaxed with the process, they'll do fine. And the key to their relaxation is preparation. Tell them that you don't listen to a lot of rap music, but you listen to a little bit. And LL Cool J said some time ago that it ain't hard to tell if you come to the podium and you have not prepared. So preparation is going to be the key that's going to save them. Okay, on the next page you'll see a little template that they could use just to fill in, to help them with their organization. One of the biggest things I found with students is to help them with that relaxation is they're just afraid to get in front of folks and speak. And I always tell them, I know all of you sitting out there, you want to be where I am. You want to stand up here and share, to show what you know, to share your expertise, don't you? And they won't say anything. And I say that is a group yes, you do want to be up here. So we're going to get you up here soon. But before we do, we're going to do a number of things to get you ready. One of the things you can do to help them relax is have the students bring themselves to class. If you turn to the next page, this is a little something to help the students become comfortable with each other and also comfortable with just getting up before people. I tell them, you come to class all the time, but you're going to bring yourself to class through a series of items. It could be a song, it could be a poem, it could be a picture. Your favorite teddy bear, you're going to bring yourself to class. So they can bring this item, and sometimes they'll ask, well, can I bring more than one? Sure, you can bring more than one. But then they have to come before the class, introduce themselves, and explain how this item is going to help them achieve their educational goal. And they get to speak about it for as long as they wish. There's no grade attached to it. It's just to get them to come up to the podium. And usually when they finish, their classmates may want to ask them some questions. So that'll get them used to the question and answer aspect of them. So it's a free exercise, but again, you want to get them comfortable with coming to the podium. Another way you can help them gain comfort is the fortune cookie speech, and you are going to, well, let's skip that one. Go to the next page and we'll come back to that one. The unbroken learning circle. Any of you watch Survivor? Any of you? Survivor on TV? You haven't? I don't either. But I had heard there was a good thing about Survivor was after they've gone through all of those near-life experiences, at the end of the show, they sit around the fire in a circle, and then they talk. And we know at the end of this talk, somebody's going to get booted off the island. So I've kind of adapted it, and we have the unbroken learning circle. Students will come to class, and this might happen the second day of class, have them make a circle as best they can. And I'll either bring a stress ball. I have a 5-minute timer that resembles an hourglass, or some item that they can hold. And I tell them, all right, this item is going to circle the room at least 3 times. When you have this item in your hand, you can discuss anything you want to discuss for as long as you want to discuss it. As long as the topic that you discuss centers on how you're going to overcome the challenges that are going to prevent you from achieving your educational goals. While you're holding this item, no one else in our little encounter group can ask you questions, nor can they comment on what you're saying. they can't speak at all. The only time they can speak is when this item comes to them. And when it comes to them, they can either comment on what you said, or they can start a completely different line of conversation. But that conversation has to center on how they are going to work to overcome the challenges to achieve their educational goals. Depending on the class size, I might let it go around 3 times. They get one chance to pass it. One chance to refrain from speaking when the item comes their way. Otherwise, when it comes to them, they have to say something. They get to determine how long it's going to be, what they're going to say. But the thrust is, nobody can comment on their responses. After we finish, I ask them about the exercise and what they found hard. And usually they say, I didn't know what to talk about. I said, but you talk all the time. When I came into class, you were chattering away. But now you got to do this focused conversation. You can't find anything to talk about. And they say, well, it's unnatural. It's not how we normally talk. But I tell them, you live through it, just as you're going to live through these speeches. So that's a good way to get them talking, learn a lot about it. When we did it this semester, one guy in the class, he was so into it, whenever it came to him, he'd say, now, we're going to talk about family. He started talking about all his sisters and brothers. When it went to the next person, well, I have a sister and a brother too. Went to the next, well, I'm an only child. I said, and that was the first. I said, so this guy, he tailored the conversation to suit his needs. So it's interesting to see what's going to come out of that little exercise. But it gets the students comfortable with talking amongst themselves. So when they say, I don't like talking in front of people, I say, but you're family now. You know how many sisters and brothers she got, and what his mother did, and what his father did. You're family now, so you're talking with your family. And then we have the fortune cookie speech. And this is one of my all-time favorites. Fortune cookies. Let's take a cookie.
Thank you.
Fortune cookies. They're harmless. They're sweet. They're crunchy. Low in cholesterol. And I tell the students, all right, you see, I said, you see in all our classrooms, no food and drink allowed in class. But this is an educational experience, so we can bend the rules a little bit. You may eat the cookie if you like. If you don't want to eat the cookie, not a problem. But there is a sliver of paper in there. Do not eat the sliver of paper. And some of them may contain 2 slivers of paper. Some, like Miss Marvina's, is a plant and has no paper at all. That happens a lot. And you know why that happens? You do have, wow. Is there anything written on there? Ooh, this is a first, but this is what happens when we deal with fortune cookies. This happens because these were not made by elves in a hollow tree. These were made in a factory somewhere, maybe in China, maybe in Georgia or San Francisco. So, eat the cookie, don't eat the fortune. But take a look at your fortune. You're going to see a statement. And you might also see some numbers. Does yours have statements and numbers? Statements and numbers? Everybody has statements and numbers? Okay, all right. In a very few minutes, I'm going to sit down, and each one of you gets to come to the podium, tell us your name, and explain how that fortune is going to help you achieve your educational goal. Now, I see fear and loathing around the room. I do. Let me help you out. Because these cookies were not made by Keebler elves, the chances are great that 2 of you have the same fortune. So while you're sitting there trying to decide whether you come up here and someone comes up here and reads your fortune, You have to explain how those numbers are going to help you achieve your educational goal. We are like the Army. We are all volunteer. And with that, I'm getting ready to have a seat. And you wonderful folks, as the Spirit moves you, come up to the podium.
Do you use the numbers or do you use the... All men should try to learn before they die what they are running from and to and why. And I think this reflects fears with education. It reflects fears in our profession. And for me, I can say that I am running from and to the QEP. And there are lots of reasons why. I think that, again, running towards it, we can embrace it because there are a lot of positive things that will come out of our quality enhancement plan and what it can do to support our academic efforts with student learning for our students. Many of us try to sometimes or think we should run from it because it seems overwhelming and daunting, and it causes us to think of something extra that, gosh, I just don't want to have to do something else. But if we embrace, again, what it can do for us and think about blending the elements with what we're trying to do within our discipline and our content-specific information, and incorporate one communication activity with that, one oral presentation activity, one writing activity, again, we'll be able to do great things with our QEP, and we will all be able to run towards that and embrace what it can do for RCC.
Oh, and as you come, there is no time limit. As the Spirit moves you, as your creative juices flow, let your words flow.
Well, my fortune is on attachment. The tighter you squeeze, the less you have. And in counseling, so often we have students come to us about relationships, problems with relationships. And it's so hard because all relationships are built on trust. If you don't have trust, you don't really have much of a relationship. And so often these young college students and some of the old
and my fortune says, talk not of wasted affections. Affection is never wasted. I have great affection for learning. And I expect my students to have great affection for learning. Some of them don't. So my goal is to get them to develop an affection for learning. And sometimes they catch it from me, and sometimes they bring it to me. And I appreciate that. Okay. My fortune cookie says, or my paper out of my fortune cookie says, all happiness is in the mind. You know, so many times when we see students come in our doors from Anson, Richmond, Scotland counties, we see depression. These students oftentimes don't know where they're going. They just know that it's been a hard road to get to us. And it's so interesting to watch students as they make it semester after semester, trudging through a system that was totally foreign to them when they came, to begin to display that happiness, to show a pride in their abilities that they've never had. This morning I had a young man in my room, and he said, I am graduating in 2 years. I have experienced major depression. I have sludged through school at times because I couldn't get one foot in front of the other. And he said, the day I walk across that stage will be the happiest day of my life. And we have instilled knowledge in his mind, which has led him to that happy point. Thank you.
I'm April Johnson, and mine says success will come with patience.
Let's just be patient.
But I also think about in my profession, based on Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people, is
to seek first to understand and then to be understood. And sometimes in our profession, that's how our patience is tested. We sometimes have to seek first to understand what's going on before we can be understood. And sometimes students feel more important when they see that you're trying to understand them before you throw it at them. But I'm also reminded of the saying that success is also knowing when to stop and play.
Hey.